Well, hey, everybody, Wes McDonald here, and welcome to another week of Level Up Live. And as always, I'm here with my good friend Kenneth Edmonds, and you got a sneak peek at our guests before we bring them back. How you doing, Ken?
I am doing fine. My home office still needs some decor touches, but it has new floor. I went on a cruise. I took my company to the airport at 5:30 this morning, so things are kind of back to normal. I'm looking forward to getting everything put up and having my life back in order.
Yes.
You and I both have been through that remodel phase, and it's not a lot of enjoyment.
It's not, and we're through most of the major strokes in our place, but certainly something I don't want to have to, live through again anytime soon, right? And maybe when I was younger, I would have enjoyed the process more, but and for our American guests, you just heard me say process, which delineates me as the Canadian on the call, eh? And you'll notice that I have Mr. Bones behind me in the background there. He's my collaboration partner today. That was my message, Ken, this morning. I don't know if you saw my little my video. Day 22 of 75 days. I can't believe I've actually done it so far. A couple of days were a little questionable. I was wearing my Canadian tuxedos, as I said in a couple of them. My plaid jacket and my hair was all crazy. I looked like a true Canadian for a couple of those days. But with me, you get what you get. So
exactly.
Yeah. So super excited today. Why don't you tell us a little about Karen Schultz from Vertical Elevation? I know that obviously one of the things that we're trying to do is transform executive teams and others to be more talent-centric, right? So really happy to have her talking about that today. Maybe you can give a little background before we introduce her.
Well, she's a PhD. She's written a book, and I was impressed with what I saw. I thought that she would fit good with our audience because, again, the nature of work, and we've talked a lot about this, is the nature of work and employment is changing fairly quickly, especially post-pandemic. The old ways of doing things don't work like they did. And so I thought she is just what we need to know.
I agree.
Or just has the information we need, I guess.
Yeah.
First thing, though, two things.
Yeah.
Got to leave your comments and questions. So if you have a question for Carol, put it in the comments. And also let us know where you're watching from. Wes and I are back, both of us in our home office. Wes's in Canada and I'm in Central Florida. So we'll find out where Carol is from. So let's add her to the stream. And Carol, you want to tell us where you're joining us from today?
I live outside of Denver, Colorado, southeast of Denver, Colorado.
Nice.
Okay. So kind of halfway between Denver and Colorado Springs.
So someone who enjoys snow like I do then.
Yeah, exactly. I've got it covered and it's still snowing right now. It's snowing again. We're getting a lot of snow. We've had the snowiest January in many, many, many years. So after a really dry year last year, we're very grateful to have the moisture.
Oh,
even though I'm tired of plowing.
Yeah, and Greg Walters is joining us from an altered state. That's
interesting.
That's a place I haven't been to since university. So welcome, Greg.
Well, I'm not sure Greg's not always in some form of an altered state, but I don't know.
Good to see you, Greg. And he's actually, I think, in Florida right now, like you, isn't he, Ken?
I do believe he's probably in Fort Myers.
IRL, as they say. We were talking about acronyms a little bit earlier before we were prepping for the call and talking about all these name changes that are happening to things, right? So IRL, for you kids who don't know that expression, it's in real life. I have a 16-year-old, so I'm getting to know them all. And good to see Dinesh Kumar watching from Dubai. And so we do have a global audience. Dinesh joins us quite frequently. And another big shout out to Dinesh for receiving the Management Certified accreditation through the Management Services Association. It's not an easy thing to get, and really proud of Dinesh for bringing that to his organization in Dubai. So it's technically, I think we've got it in 4 or 5 different countries now, so it's become a global standard.
Yeah, very, very nice. And Greg said he's just getting in from Miami. Okay, nice. So I have the first thought I would ask is, you talk about 3 core principles of talent-centric organizations. Do you want to tell us what those might be?
Yeah, happy to. First, I do want to say I do not have a PhD. So,
oh, sorry.
I don't know where you got that. I mean, I think, from experience, I probably have one, but I don't actually, you can't call me doctor.
Okay. That's right. I've been working on several podcasts coming up. And so that fact stuck from somebody else. I apologize.
Okay. That's all right. I just don't want anybody to think I'm misrepresenting myself. I don't want to get hate mail on my.
We've seen that in the news lately. People having accreditations that they don't, etc. So
that gets us on a whole different tangent. George Santos. Okay, so the three pillars of being talent centric. The first is leadership working under an aligned vision, which everyone can articulate. Right. The focus is truly on your people. And everything you do drives better experiences for your people, which includes the C-suite. So it's not lip service. Secondly, it's a talent development strategy from recruiting to succession and succession beyond the C-suite, right? This includes building diversity so you don't suffer from groupthink. And the third thing is built-in blind spot awareness from established feedback loops. And those might be, it's really about shifting how you think and therefore how you work. And this begins at the executive level and trickles down throughout the organization.
Yeah, I like what you say about that alignment at the beginning, right? And I was actually reading another post by a good friend of mine in the managed IT services space, Ian Richardson, and he was talking about the importance of alignment in organizations, right? And I think tacking on that piece that you said at the end there, which is that if they're all aligned in the fact that they have to change their thinking, then it can happen. Otherwise, there's no alignment on that sort of vision of change. It won't, right?
Listen, there's no question. When I came up with this process in 2008, there was a lot of things that drove that. And ultimately it was that the entire search process was broken. And I fully still is broken in many, many ways.
Yeah.
And as I started kind of working through, at that point, I'd had about 16 years business in the industry, experience in the business. And I started working through it and looking at what are the problems here? And it all boiled down to leadership. And I didn't, and I reached out to many executives that I knew. And they really confirmed my thinking. Now, I have a story in the book, and I'm not going to divulge who the company is, but a buddy of mine who worked for over 20 years for a very well-known tech firm. Okay. You can, could be any number of ones. Right. And as I was going through this scenario with him, he said, well, I said, how do you determine, let's say, the kind of field salespeople that you need? And he says, well, we know what we want, and we know what we need, and we know what works. And I said to him, well, how do you know that person wants to come work for you? Crickets. Really. And I just sat here quietly, and finally he said, I don't know. That's a really good question. Right. And that all goes back up to a lack of alignment or a gap in alignment at the executive team. And how do you bring that down and then now devise a talent strategy to support that?
Yeah. And I think, like you said, how do they know that they want to work there, right? And some of the best leaders that I've ever known, I am going to give a shout out on this one because it's a positive message.
Yeah.
John McInnes, if you're out there and you're listening, this big shout out to you as a leader. I worked for him at a company called Print Audit for about 5 years. And it was probably one of, I guess, the most rewarding places that I've had the opportunity to work for a person, right? And his people were raving advocates, and therefore they knew people wanted to work for that company because it was so rare.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, if there's that alignment in thought, that kind of energy and everything else, then they will want, to come work for you, right? Just personally experienced it. The company I do work for now, Tiger Paw Software, same thing. James Foxhall, big shout out. And also Joel Vaslow, who I work with directly there. Just incredible individuals. And maybe you can share a little bit about this as it comes to those 3 points. Their ability to actually share that vision and get people excited about it, right? Is that also a problem where leadership just, maybe not just the gap, but they fail to actually be able to articulate that vision?
Well, yes, in fact, it is. Funny you should ask that, Wes. One of the first questions I ask in discovery is to each member of the executive committee and board members. I mean, I encourage them to have the board members come in and do this as well. I'm working on a project right now, getting something with a founder. And I asked her, what would your people say if I asked each of them what the vision is for the company? And she goes, well, they'd say it's, Jane's vision. said, well, it's not really the right answer. Just spouting off that it's the founder's vision doesn't tell me that you know what our vision is.
Yeah.
Or
Greg
that
has
you
a question
agree
here
with
for
it.
you. He says the process is from 2008, right? And what has changed since then, especially today with, work from anywhere versus RTO? Is that a sports car?
Return to office.
Thank you.
Thank you.
GTO, sorry.
Yeah, that would be a GTO, right?
I'd love to talk about a GTO, but the RTO and OpenAI eliminating driven process rewarded job functions. That's a
I don't think that a ton has changed. I mean, I've been working from home for 21 years. And my work from home has not changed at all. I mean, yeah, I like to get out. COVID was hard for me.
Yeah.
As it was for many people. But, what makes work from home or having a fully remote, and I've known plenty of founders who have started their companies fully remote. I'm working with a founder right now in the renewables sector, and everybody will probably be remote because we're looking for the best people in the country. And those people will not all be in Florida where he is located.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think the important part about what has changed from, work from home versus return to office is you have to have far better communication. Companies lack quality communication overall, but it's even more critical to learn how to communicate effectively with your people who are, sitting in an office at home like I am. And, I recommend that companies, and it's expensive, but it's worth it because they're saving money by not having office space, right? So I really highly recommend to companies, bring your whole team together in one place every quarter.
Yeah. Absolutely. And again, shout out to Pernod and I worked for them remotely.
Mm-hmm.
And we did get together once a quarter, live and in person to do stuff. And it's funny, James Fox over at Tiger Paw Software, he'll be the first person to tell you that pre-pandemic, he was completely against remote work. He didn't believe that productivity, etc.
Right.
But his people surprised him so much in how they delivered through the pandemic that he's become, entirely a work from, anywhere, advocate, right? You want to come into the office 5 days a week? Great. You want to come in 3 days a week? Great. You want to, come in never? Great. That's, I would say that's possibly the pandemic at least changed that, right? Everyone in this call, we've been working remotely. Ken, how long have you been working remotely? I mean,
20 years.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm about 20 years.
Yeah, so 60 years among the three of us.
Right. So if anyone's looking for, some assistance on, how to make remote work, maybe you can reach out to Carol. We'll have her contact information down there, and obviously us, right? That I think this, and Greg Walters, by the way, because I know him well, also works remotely, right? So the real question is, and I don't have the answer, Greg, if you're asking for a balance there, like how's it going to shift, versus this return to the office? I mean, that is if I could answer that one or come up with a game plan, I'd probably be rich, right?
Yeah, and I want to back up to something, Carol, that you mentioned a little earlier, because you use the term leaders and sharing their vision, and I work with service managers, which are not at the top level of companies, and one of the things that I consistently sense from them is they don't really have a clue of what the vision is,
right?
And I think that. I think that, I think it goes back to, we apply the term leader to somebody that's running an organization, but that's not necessarily synonymous.
Right.
There's a difference between being the person in charge and being a true leader, because a leader is somebody that's going to communicate that vision and is going to get people. And I talk to my service managers about this, in that you can be a leader and not have a title of any kind, because a leader is somebody people want to follow. And you can be the boss and run the company, but that doesn't mean your team wants to follow you, wants to go where you're going. And is that one of the things you talk about you're thinking about when you talk about alignment?
Of course it is. And that's why I said it starts with aligning the executive team, right? And then we talk about how do we now filter this out throughout the organization, which is about communicating effectively. Because you don't know, I mean, if you have asked your employees when you hire them, and of course, there's no reason not to do it retroactively, because if companies now turning into something that's talent centric, we have to now go to our current employees and say, okay, so you've been with us X amount of years, months, whatever that is. You've been in this role. What are your goals? You know, we'd love to have you here longer. You're doing a great job. What are your goals? Are you looking for a position as a leader? You know, with a title, you know, district manager, regional manager, engineering manager, whatever that is, right? Team lead. Okay. You have to ask your employees what they need and what they want. And that is one of the things that conversation that I had with this technology guy. Well, I don't know. That's a really good question.
Yeah.
Companies have failed this for millennia, really.
Yeah.
Asking, it's a really important question to ask.
It is. And that's one of those things that I run into frequently with people is, you know, this idea that we simply need to ask more questions, right? It's not just of our employees, it's of our customers, it's of fellow, you know, executives, it's from the colleagues that we rub shoulders with in the industry, right? Like, we need to ask more questions. How are you? someone actually said that, said to me once, and it got me to thinking that there's a few people in my world that ask that consistently. How are you? Is there anything I can do for you? That's probably my favorite question at the end of every call. And then, you know, I have to pause and think, and I get used to it with a couple of them because I know what's coming, but that they're genuinely, you know, concerned about that. You know, what are your ambitions? Where do you want to be in 3 years?
Right.
But, hey, I wonder if we can, just in the interest of time as well, I really like this point that was in the bullets, and it kind of segues a bit, but it seems pretty controversial. So it says, why do we need to ditch our job descriptions, and what do we write instead? And I'll follow that up with a comment that actually came from Greg Walters, which talked about quiet quitting versus, you know, matching the job description, right? So what is this? Why do we have to get rid of these job descriptions?
Because they're pretty crappy, first of all. And there's really, in my opinion, and, you know, I'm just going back 30 years. What can I tell you? There's really no thought or little thought, in my opinion, that are put into job. It's, you know, here's a paragraph about our company and then a litany of bullet points. You know, my former resume writer I used in my business used to refer to it as death by bullet point. Right. And what a position description does is it starts with asking many, many questions, right? You talk about asking questions. I always say the only stupid question is the one that never gets asked. So, you know, when I start to help a company or teach them how to prepare a job description, it is a kickoff meeting with a list of usually 45 to 50 questions-ish about the particular role that we're looking to build. And those questions are often things that people have never thought about. Right. And it's because they're too close to it. Right. I'm looking at it from a different point of view. So by having those questions and having people actually think about those things, they start to, you know, answer the questions. And I can now look at my pages and pages and pages of notes and say, okay, now we need to start to develop what this position actually looks like, not just a job spec. Right. So partly it's, you know, who the company is, how do we operate? Not everything in that interview, by the way, goes into the job description or the position description. Right. There are things that when you talk to candidates, you're going to want to discuss with them. But overall, you want people to get a sense of who this company is, why it might be a good fit for me as a candidate, and, you know, and why might I want to work there? And, you know, it gives us a little bit about the culture of the company, gives us about the position and myself as a candidate, what I might be required from a skills and abilities standpoint, right? I mean, if it's a leadership position, there's a lot of things that go into management. And when I say leadership, I don't necessarily mean, you know, a CXO. I could be meaning a first level sales manager, right? Or first level engineering manager. There are certain things. And of course, the cultural piece, I always say, is equally, if not more important, because there was some research I read years ago. I cannot identify where it was. I do not remember that something in the neighborhood of 56%, I think it was, somewhere north of 50, of people leave a job in the first 18 months for reasons having nothing to do with their skills and abilities.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I think too, I mean, one of these things that I don't know even how you do it. Maybe you've got some answers for it, but, and I hear this all the time, that if you have somebody that comes in for an interview and they're the right fit for the organization, the job will find them, right? Like whatever, they could be in internally. And I know that's one of the hardest things, right? Is when we're actually trying to hire, for talent, and where that talent may fit versus whatever that, very boxed in job description says, right?
yeah.
I would have a heck of a time doing a covering letter for a resume anymore, because, like even just a description of the kinds of things that I do to fit into, like you said, those bullet points, very difficult to find that specific thing, right? So, I really like that, because it just strikes me that it's a little bit more, you're being more exploratory and more open in what they're trying to accomplish, their outcomes, right? Versus just filling a role.
You're exactly right, Wes. And I think, to put a, cross that T, is it's really about being authentic with who you are as a company, who you are as a human being, and who they are as a human being, right? The openness to really talking to people and saying, look, I'm not here to blow sunshine up your skirt. And I really hope you're not here to do the same for us, because we're looking to make a good match. And doing it this way means there's more work involved earlier to get this done. But when you look at the cost of turnover versus that, I mean, you've got a major ROI coming in if you just do it the right way the first time.
Yeah.
I would say that's so interesting. And one of the things that when I work with service managers and we talk about the hiring process, I talk about the fact that it's as much deciding if that's the right person, but you also need to sell them on the company and help them get a picture of why they might want to be there. Because if the picture you paint is not what they want, you want to know that sooner rather than later. And if you paint the picture that is what they want, they're less likely to ghost you. Wes and I talk a lot about the purple cow, but it's the same thing as with a job description, or I don't know, let's not use the job description, but with whatever it is we're telling them about our company. If we can make what we offer different than what 9 other companies are offering, we don't necessarily have to pay the most if they buy into the vision, let's say,
right,
and the culture.
That's exactly right. And that's the key, Ken, is, what are we different about? And that's fine, because you look at all these giant companies. Microsoft's laying off another 10,000 people, right? And I posted something about it on my LinkedIn last week. And, and somebody bashed me for it. And I thought, look, man, there is an ass for every seat out there. Okay. And it's important that those companies that have those seats are very clear about what they need and what they want in their talent. And, I'm like, should it surprise anybody that all these big companies are laying people off now? I don't know why anybody's surprised. This is what always happens when the economy takes a downturn. And you choosing to go to work for one of these big companies is the chance you take. I would have people say to me in the past, oh, I want to go with a company that's secure, like a big company. And I'm saying, guess what? That is not necessarily the case. And I can provide millions of examples, of that over my career, of people saying, oh yeah, this is years and years ago. I'll never forget it. Yeah, Carol, this opportunity sounds fantastic, but I just got an offer from Oracle. And I said, like an offer in writing, like you have it on your desk? He said, no, it's a verbal offer. I said, guess what? A verbal offer isn't an offer. You may think it is, but it's not. And I will tell you, 24 hours later, the guy called me back and said the offer was pulled.
Wow.
I'll never forget it.
Hey, I just had a little bit of fun here. I actually pulled a job description for a listing on LinkedIn.
Oh, great.
For a software developer.
Well, I'm sure we'll keep the company nameless.
We will. And actually, I fed it through, Greg Walters, you like this. I just fed it through Chat GPT and said, get rid of the role. Let's talk about customer outcomes and what's really important. And this is hilarious. I'll read it quickly. Are you passionate about using and developing technology to empower people and drive business success? We're looking for a driven and innovative problem solver to join our team and lead the development of a communication infrastructure that will revolutionize the way our customers operate. As a key member of our team, you'll have the opportunity to not only use technology to understand and solve customer pain points, but also design and build solutions that automate mental tasks and free up time for strategic and revenue generating activities for our customers. Blah, blah, blah. So again, it's talking more about the outcomes, right? It's like, do you like technology? Do you like making technology? Do you like helping your customers? Do you like doing these things, right? So I'm going to copy in that one. Yeah, it just made my brain go on fire. It's like, if you have this ability to take that thing and try and personalize it more and drive more towards outcomes. And maybe I'm crazy, but I think at the end of the day, that's what matters, right?
Right. You are right. And, I'd be curious as to who wrote that. Right. I mean, if I knew who the company was, I'd start to look at, let me see who their recruiters are. Let me see who their managers are. Who's writing this? And, I hate to say it. I recently saw, I can't remember if the guy had written something or what, or reached out to me about something. I don't recall. And his title was senior recruiter with 5 months experience. And the reason I mention that is because, I'm not here to bash all internal recruiters, but most of them are really they're incompetent, and it's not their fault. I do want to say that it is not their fault. It's the fault of whoever the incompetent person is bringing them in, whether that's HR or somebody else who doesn't understand what it means to be a professional headhunter. They have to be trained.
Absolutely. Here's another bullet point down here, which I really like, and this would make me apply to an organization, right?
Are you being facetious?
So, yeah, no, I'm being,
okay.
I'm being serious. I love this. At our company, we're people first. That means even if the role you interviewed for doesn't turn out to be the perfect,
love it.
We're open to exploring other opportunities with an organization that could be an epic win for everybody involved.
Bravo.
Right? Like,
really, bravo. I can only hope that all the writing I've done and all the podcasts and my book are finally starting to get through to people.
Right. Yeah, it's that kind of messaging, right? That reaches out and saying, heck, I'm not sure if that's the role for me, but this company sounds like they're pretty flexible. I get that right away, right?
Yep.
That they're really interested in the talent versus, necessarily just fulfilling the role. It says to me that the talent's more important than just simply filling the seat, because that's what we were hired to do, right?
And it is.
I love it.
Yeah. And kind of going along those lines, one of the things that I talk to service managers about is the need to paint a picture of how a person can move up in the company. I said, and I use this analogy, and I have fun with this. I said, what you don't want to do is take a prospect back and introduce them to Fred, who's been a technician at your company for 40 years, and then tell him that. Because if the door is not locked, they're gone. Because they don't want to be, especially the millennials and the new generations coming. Yeah. They do not want to be, in a role for 40 years. They look at building resumes and making advancement. And the things that we saw in the last couple of weeks, you're talking about Microsoft laying off. Meta just dumped a bunch of people. I saw a post today where there was a person that was out on paternity leave and someone that had just had a baby. I guess the husband might have been on paternity leave. But anyway, they both work for Meta, and they got an email said, "You're fired." I mean,
that is pitiful.
It is.
And shameful.
But what happens is that people no longer trust the company. They don't.
Well, right.
And the millennials in particular, the average expectation 3 years.
Well, hey, listen, in respect for everyone's time, we are at the bottom of the half hour, and that's how long we do these things. So maybe, Carol, you can let folks know how they can get in touch with you to learn more about how they can, build their talent pool more successfully.
Fantastic. So you can certainly go to my website, which is verticalelevation.com. There are links on there to schedule time with me. You're welcome to email me directly, carol@verticalelevation.com. And I'm always welcome to have a phone call.
Good old-fashioned phone call.
Phone call, and that's 303-805-7635. I am not afraid to send that number out.
I love it. I'm the same way with mine. It's my business number. So
That's right. It's my business number. So,
yeah,
I can't say I answer it whenever it rings, but if you want me, you can leave me a message and I can promise I will return your call within 24 hours.
well, that's
Unless
great.
I'm under a bus somewhere.
And I did post on
Yep.
LinkedIn today. I posted a reading list that has your book on it. So
Thank you.
we try to on the Level Up page. There is a reading list because I'm a huge fan of books
Me
and
too.
education, and so your book's on that list. So everybody that's listening,
I
check out the
appreciate
list.
that. I just had a founder get back to me who read it while she was on vacation, and she says, "Oh my God, Carol, the aha moments that I had." I'm
Right?
like, thank you.
Don't you love those? Yeah.
Yeah, I really do.
And it
It's
is number
wonderful.
one in 3 categories
Yep.
on Amazon. So powered by people, folks. Make sure you do check out the reading list and get in touch. And Carol, I cannot thank you enough for joining us today. What
Well,
a
I
pleasure.
cannot thank you both for having me. This has really been a fun conversation. I sure appreciate it.
Great. Well, enjoy the best of your day. And for everyone else out there, remember to keep learning. And what else, Ken?
They should keep leveling up.
Absolutely. See you, folks.